Luke, I need some
Yeah.
context. You are one of the most masters of marketing that I've come across in a long while at a startup stage. Give me an intro.
Yeah.
Give me a background. What are you working on?
Yeah. So it's a short, but it's a long story, but I'll make it really short. So I was on my summer holidays. I was on holiday in the Lake District, lovely place, and I got a message on LinkedIn from Zara saying, "Would you like to do a summer internship at BIGGED?" And I was like, "Of course I will. I love startups. I've been kind of doing it while at university." And I was like, "Look, it's a great place for me to learn, and I get to kind of be really in the depths of and the weeds of what a startup's like, because I've done a bit of previous experience, but I was like, yes, some real like life experience." And yeah, and they kind of said, "Luke, we want you to kind of be in charge of the marketing and kind of push the and kind of growth side." And I've just thrown myself very much deep in, both hands swimming around, giving it a go, and just getting really in the weeds of how algorithms work, because that's kind of where I spent a lot of time reading and trying to understand and reading papers on it, because it's a game of understanding algorithms, if that makes sense. But yeah, and I'm here. We've had some look. It's been quite exciting. We've booked some really exciting calls, but we'll get into that probably a bit later during the live stream. But yeah, there's a lot of learnings to be had, and I look forward to sharing them.
Let's do it. Head of brain rot. Why do you classify yourself as that?
Well, I think a lot of people they think, right, they'll sit in their meeting rooms, you can imagine, they're all drinking their Starbucks coffees, and they're talking about what marketing should be like and whatever. And I
Or I
think a
guess
lot
in
of
your
people don't
case, it's
understand.
not Starbucks, is it?
Yeah.
It's Huel.
Yeah. Yes, it's the fuel in a way is fueling the mind, and it's making me realize there's better ways of doing things. And why I like to say ahead of brain rot is because you've got to really understand the culture of the platform, right? And whatever market or whatever industry you're selling to, it's really key to kind of see what they're seeing, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I've made this really great piece of content," and they're like really excited. They put it out and get 20 likes and no engagement. And it's, well, do you have to understand where it fits in the algorithm, right? So that's why I like to call myself head of brain rot, because I spend a lot of my time scrolling. Who knew that would become a job? Doom scrolling in a way. But yeah, so I learn as much as I can about the culture of the platform and what my audience are looking at, and then build content around that, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Why, how does one go about doing that? Is it as simple as
Yeah.
me literally sitting here, picking up my phone and going, right, brain rot time, let's go, let's go, let's go? Or have you figured out a process to doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bit of a joke in some of the kind of the underground communities of how many mobile phones people have.
Right.
I think there's a marketer I know it's got like 7 at the moment. I'm slightly jealous of that. I'm rocking 2 at the moment.
Jesus.
But yeah, so yeah, I know it's crazy. So how it kind of works is you want to essentially build a completely fresh new algorithm, right? If you build one on your own account, then you just don't get the same results. So what I always recommend is make a fresh new algorithm. So make a new account, new Gmail, whatever email provider you use, and then take that and then just type in the keywords of your industry. And then, because again, what I often will do is I'll put a film on in the background. I'll lower the brightness down on my phone, just sit there and scroll for 2 hours, and just I won't even look at the formats then. I'm just trying to let my algorithm learn who I am and learn what I'm looking at. And then what I will do is then I will then start looking at it and start writing down formats. Get a big old Excel spreadsheet, right? And just write, what is the hook of the video? What's the format? And then just start going down. You want to get a list of like 100. It's quite easy after that. And then you just take those learnings and insights and start making content that hopefully rips.
How important is the format today?
I think it's critical. I think a lot of people, it's really interesting. I always say you can always tell what type of CMO someone is if they come up to you and they'll say, "How many followers do you have?" And it's like, oh god, no, that isn't. In my opinion, the algorithms have gone to an interest based, right? They're not follower based. So you can see accounts going viral within 10 videos. There was a client that we were working with, and we were talking about kind of what's resonating in the niche, and this account went viral within 7 days. They'd found the format. It's like an AI doctor talking about something. They'd seen that format and they just ripped it. It was frightening how quick. So if you get the right format, you can just fly. But it's discovering the format, which is really difficult.
And so the content doesn't matter as much. It's like, how do I package up that content inside the right format?
Precisely. Packaging's everything now. I think Paddy Galloway from YouTube, he talks about it quite a lot. It's all about the packaging, right? There are fundamental things. I mean, it's like the hook of a video, right? You have 3 seconds to engage, right? If you don't get the engagement there, then there's no point of the high effort you've done, right? And I think a lot of people will spend loads of time on the video. They'll make it really polished, really hi-fi, but actually just making the hook a bit lo-fi, then going into the hi-fi section gives great results engagement-wise.
How important is the storytelling within all of that?
Look, there's a really ChatGPT is great. I use it quite a lot. I'm a big fan of it, just in helping with scripting. I think what you can do is, if you're writing any video, put in your script that you're planning to do, and just say add the hero arc. All the famous films do it. It's like the Star Wars thing, where it's Luke Skywalker, his parents. I'm not going to give spoilers on the live stream. Actually, let's not do that. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But you know the story, right? You've got to have the call to action, and I think. Look, you can ask ChatGPT, say, how would this become more of an enriching story? And then it will help you, right? It's a great tool. You've got to be using it. If you're not using it, then, yeah, well, I don't know what rock you're living under, but anyway.
Why do you think marketing is so against using AI in their work? Like, obviously, what you do at BIGGED is very much leveraging the technology to build assets at scale. But the organic nature that comes with the algos, do you feel like there's a blend where you can use the technology to leverage what makes great content, or is it like just pick one lane and stick to it?
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, we'll get on to kind of what type of series I'm doing on LinkedIn at the moment. But what really annoyed me is there's a lot of people will be like, right, they'll just go on to ChatGPT and say, write me a blog post, right? And I think that's just like the most, because it isn't you, right? The only differentiator we now have is yourself, right? So why are you letting someone else speak for you? And I think that's what ChatGPT does. It's not your own voice. I think what it's great at is it's kind of communicating your ideas in a way that other people would understand. That's the power. It isn't the power. You don't ask ChatGPT to make your own voice, right? You see it all the time, though. You must have seen it, right? Where you'll see some like AI, like classic, like jargony marketing word, like, I'm trying to think of one. They'll make you've seen them all the time. Right?
I find like they always have hyper in it, or like hyper dash, or in this case, it's like the arrow now.
Yeah. Look, my favorite joke is if I look at your prompt history and I see remove M dash is the most common thing, then I know we have a problem, right? Because it's so clear to me what you're doing, right? I always like to say to people. So.
I completely agree. When it comes to the algos, though, I want to just backtrack a little bit before we move on to the LinkedIn content. What have you learned about the algorithms, given that we're moving towards this interest base, but we really like understanding the individual, and we don't like ads? Like, what have you found? What are the nuances you found? You're probably one of the few people that I know that have spent more time with an algorithm than human beings.
Yeah, it's yes. Look, I think what's really interesting, I'm going to give you a story that isn't off social media, but on another type of algorithm. So Amazon is a really interesting case of that, where what a lot of like D2C brand owners were doing was a technique called brushing, where they realized if they bought their own products and sent it to random people and then put reviews on it, they could push themselves higher in the algorithm.
Yep.
So I think what the best marketers do is they understand the system they're in and then realize how to hack it. Right? So I'll give you an example of it. So we'll take it to social media now for some learning. So LinkedIn, I've been learning it for the last month, right? And what I've realized is it rewards a couple of like metrics. First of all, comments are a really interesting place. So if you let's say there's 10 content creators in your niche, right? And you put a bell recommendation on and the minute they release a bit of content, it like rings your whatever. What you can do is if you put a comment straight away that's actually valuable, don't just put some random shit. No one wants that. You can get a lot of impressions. I remember we were talking off stream about this with Steve Bartlett, right? I literally put a comment that was quite high value, I think was quite valuable, whatever. It got 9,000 impressions just off a comment, right? And it's like, if you can understand that, and that's just a great example, all these platforms have their own nuances. And if you can understand what works and what doesn't, you can start to put your message, again, in the best format possible. I think that's how you got to learn the algorithm, then you learn the formats, and then you deal with your messaging, and then that's just
it's sort of like,
does that make sense?
Yeah, you sort of have to go through this process of understanding the technical aspects of the platform so that you can win the output of share of mind, so that when people see the feed, it's like, oh, I'm waiting for Luke's comment, or, oh, this is what this guy does, right? How has the LinkedIn formats worked for you then so far?
So it was interesting. So when I started at BIGGED, we were talking about kind of what our go-to-market strategy would look like, and in a unhinged way, I went, well, look, everyone's doing this, let's do this, right? So I was like, look, I think there's a great place for a series format. They do really, especially on TikTok, like 30 days till or whatever, right? You've got to have a big cause in that, because if it's like 30 days of eating chicken wings, no one, I mean, that's what I'm doing, no one would care. But if it's like 30 days of eating chicken wings to prove to my bosses that it's the best and only marketing strategy, or they'll fire me, right? You can just come up with like stakes and urgency to create excitement. And I think my first post I did really well. I think a lot of people resonated with the AI slop on LinkedIn, and that's kind of what I'm battling. But also as well, it's the advice I give is put yourself in the bigger story. So I've got Huel and the fact that LinkedIn content is really boring. They're like my two things that I'm trying to deal with, and I'm putting my story within it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that LinkedIn is rewarding that type of content for the platform? Obviously, the format works. The story arc, the hero story arc of we want Huel as a business to work with BIGGED. Do you feel like the eating the chicken wings is sort of like a disruption within that allows people to sort of break out of this weird, what is going on here?
Yeah. So look, like, as I was saying to the team about this, I could have easily just been wearing my normal clothes, standing there eating chicken wings, but you have to get really granular. It's like, right, what would make this really weird? Okay, well, if he's in a lab coat wearing goggles, eating chicken wings, and I'm on my LinkedIn. And remember, when you're on LinkedIn, it's a very different mindset to TikTok and Instagram. It's kind of like work mindset, right?
It's insights, it's like extracts. Kind of
yeah, precisely. And you'll be on your feed and you're like, wait, hold on, what is this kid doing? And I think that's the superpower you've got to have, is try not to take yourself too seriously, but then also like add like a serious message within it. I know it sounds a bit contradictory. I think great innovation comes in the contradiction, that middle part. I think with social media, it's like, okay, what's a series that works? Chicken wings, cool. Spicy wings, etc. We've seen that work on other platforms. How can I shape that to the culture and norms of LinkedIn? Well, okay, let's talk about LinkedIn AI slop. Let's talk about, again, Huel, right? Very public in sales, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like too many people are in the DMs. And don't get me wrong, I love the DMs as well for LinkedIn and whatever. But what I found that works, if there's like a funny way to start the conversation, then it usually becomes more serious by the end. That's one of the big insights that I found recently. Quite interestingly, actually.
Whose DMs are you in that is actually quite awesome to be around?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a good question. So look, to be honest, to full transparency, we've had conversations with Huel in the DMs. Some of the key decision makers. Look, I mean, I think the thing is, a lot of people build things and they never actually get feedback on it, if that makes sense. And they kind of get quite disheartened. And what I believe is, if you can have that first touch point, you get the conversation going, even if they're not wanting it now, you know in the future that they'll come back. I'm not saying Huel don't want it. I mean, that's what I'm saying, but we're going in the right direction, hopefully.
We love to see it.
But other people in the DMs, we've had like Elite Cereal. Have you heard of them?
I have.
Elite. Yeah, they're really cool what they're doing. We've had some quite big American companies. I can't really go into detail of who it was, but they're one of the fasting D2C brands at the moment.
Very interesting. And this all came inbound, or just they opened up the conversation, or allowed to open up the conversation because they'd seen their content.
Yeah, precisely. And it's interesting as well, because I would say the chicken videos are very top of funnel, try and get the mass attention. But like my playbooks, for example, they won't get the same amount of engagement, but really high intent, if that makes sense.
And so you're sort of blending.
So you've got to have a balance, right? Precisely, right? Like, you've got to give value, but also have a bit of fun. Don't just be like, because again, there's a great saying, people don't buy from clowns. And I always like to take it to a new derivative and say, actually, people don't buy from clowns. Yes, but what about the clowns giving great value and entertainment? You'll feel something, right? You've got to give emotion. There's just too much same of the sameness, right? It's just got to give feeling, got to give emotion. I think that's important.
That's what we try and do here, right? Like, it's raw takes. It's like talking to the builders. that are actually on the ground doing this stuff. When it comes to marketing for a startup, then we're kind of all enamored by Cluely at this point in time, or Pally as an example, right? Like incredible marketing effort. No one really knows what is happening behind the scenes, but they're in the cultural zeitgeist of anyone building a startup today. It's like, oh Jesus, how do I compete with like 15 million from A16Z? When we think about that, how do you take that and sort of go, right, we are not on that level yet, but we need to hack away there?
Yeah. So look, I think my best advice for startups is you've got to race yourself to the format that will make you go viral, right? It's a game of hunting for formats. And then, I mean, look, right, Cluely are spending, I think, $400,000 a month on interns. I think it's like a compulsory 4 pieces of content a day, minimum, right? Because I think what Cluely understand is if we can do loads of pieces of content, we can work out the formats that will go viral, and then we can double down on those winners, right? And I think that's one of the key learnings is the game now is speed and scale, right? It's actually a content creation system, right? I mean, you see these unbelievable like operators of like 17 who have built like NA8 plugins that can do like ridiculous things, right? You know, there's a lot of learnings from these like underground Discord communities that I love to kind of be in and see what they're doing, because it's just like they're nuts. I mean, have you heard about Whoop?
I have WOP. I have the aura that can create around an athlete or just a person, if you have the capital to invest in it, is just insane.
Yeah, precisely. You know, and look, like, it's difficult because I think, look, if I had a big, like, again, big, we're quite a lean team. We've got kind of a lean budget. But like where I want to take our kind of strategy is I want to get free in-house content creators. I want to pay them to kind of make a minimum of 3 pieces of content a day. It doesn't have to be all viral. It doesn't have to be all like real videos. It can be like carousels, playbook, whatever, right? It don't matter. But I just want to like have that speed and scale of different formats and content to allow me then to work out what's going viral, and then take that to communities and then like spread it.
I see.
That makes sense. And have more people doing it.
And so it's world building in that sense.
Precisely, right? You've got to, I think, look, it's interesting. I think there's a really good question, and I haven't got the answer to it yet. But if you look at life down to if you boil it down to kind of supply and demand, what's becoming scarce, and I think for me, looking at content, it's so easy to make. I mean, we all have a mobile phone. Like we can all start filming, right? But what I think a lot of people they just don't get the fundamentals of what is the hook, right? What is the title hook? What is the angle hook? You know, this is what's going viral in this niche. Okay. And then taking the learnings from another niche and adding it to your niche, right? I think originality is a really interesting concept to me now, because it's like, what is truly original?
Nothing,
is it because, you know?
Nothing is truly original. We're all remixing on ideas from other people. If you take your example, you're sort of blending them two together. When I first saw the content, I was like, is this Brainiac from the BBC show? But mixed in with... But actually, it's not. You've sort of taken that lab coat and gone, oh, I'll apply the Hot Wings concept to it. But then I'll keep the story arc of what works online, and sort of taking the best of breed of all these different formats.
Yeah. Well, look, I think what's really interesting, I think Gary Vaynerchuk came out with a book, of Gary Vaynerchuk, sorry, I've butchered his surname. That's embarrassing. I think it was Day Trading Attention.
Yep.
Right. And I think what was really interesting to me, and look, this is a really interesting space right now, is the fact that a lot of companies are going, right, let's spend a lot of money on the organic side, understand what's resonating in the organic, and if it works organic, it will work paid, right? But what I'm now seeing is a bit of a flip where companies, I'll give you a great example, there's a company called Hostage Tape, right, in America, a UFC partner. And what they'll do is on Facebook, Meta Ad Library, they'll put like 20 different like static ads, right, of like a verbal hook just in text, and then they'll see what has the best click-through rate, and then they'll use that to then give to their kind of like content creators to then use, because they'll know that if it's working there. So it's like this beautiful like mixture of organic informing paid and actually paid then informing organic. It's just
this flywheel.
So
almost
incredible. It's beautiful because it's like if it works paid, it works organic. If it works organic,
it works paid. And it feels like that is the approach that we've all got to be taking today when we're thinking about content. But how do you do that if you don't have if you don't have like a super packed team like the Vayner agency?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I think we can all not easily, right? I think every person in a team needs to be thinking about marketing, right? I think everyone does. I think
it's like make everyone a salesman, right?
Precisely, right? I mean, look, it was funny when I joined BIGGED, Aaron, our CTO, we were talking about what type of content he could do, and we were doing this like live streaming like thing where he'd be live streaming him building, right? Taking all that and then building like really aesthetic clips off the back of it, right? I think it's a great concept where you think about a lumberjackman, right? They'll be cutting trees down, they'll sell the logs, but there's actually money in the sawdust. And I think about that in content. It's how can you make a really big piece of content? I mean, look, that's what you do, right? Really well. You do a really long live stream, and then you snip it up into clips, and then you use it as distribution. I think lots of people need to think like that. Okay, if I'm doing a playbook, let's say one of my playbooks does really well, can I turn that into a reel, a short 30-second video? Okay, if it does really well there, let's then take that to a long form content, right? It's just, how can one piece of content be 15 pieces of content and then scale that up?
With the content that you're doing being so short form at the moment, how do you think about long form content then in the context of a startup?
Yeah. I mean, look, like there's some I think Slide Bean is a really good example.
Tell me
company
more.
That does it really well. Slide Bean. So they do like, it's a bit interesting. I think it's like a PowerPoint software. I think they're trying to do like similar to Microsoft PowerPoint, but like in a better way, of course. But they do content which isn't like talking just about what their software does, but talking about like within the ecosystem, right? So they're like, okay, who's going to be using our software? Right, these types of customers. What do they care about? Probably about, they're probably making pitch decks. Okay, what would they want? Okay, they care about pre-seed, seed. What does that actually mean? So it's actually educating them around the top, like not, if you sell all the time in content, no one's going to watch. They'll just get bored, right? We can, you can tell salesy breath, right, really easily. But if you can give value around the space, and then kind of like wiggle your core offering within it, then you'll do well. So I think that's what the best long form content does. They'll start with like a really good broad question, and then by the end, you'll kind of realize that you need their software or product or whatever. That's one of my beliefs on long form.
How important is the aesthetic that you put out?
Yeah, well,
or do you not mind? Because like if you take a product like Gamma as an example, Perplexity, who are obviously at an incredible stage, right? They're not a startup anymore. They're sort of in this scale up phase. When you look at them and you think about the image that you've got of these brands, it's like ethereal. It's like walking through a field, and it's dreamy in the way that you think about these products. Both are incredible, but then the content that you put out is very short form, very not aligned, but it doesn't have those like combinations of typical brand color codes and brand mentions, etc.
Yeah.
Can both exist? Can both coexist? Or actually you need to sort of be on brand as you move down the line when it comes to marketing?
It's really interesting. I think the biggest mistake startups make is they look at their favorite startups in like the ones that they dream to be, and they copy their marketing strategy. And it's like they've got the ability to do that because they've done the scrappy stuff at the beginning, right? I think look, like AG1 is my favorite example. If you go onto Wayback Machine, look at their website like 7 years ago, it was the most like performance marketing kind of like, you've got heavy bloating, like really like not beautiful, but just extremely blunt. And now if you look at their website, it's very kind of like to the tech bros wearing the gilets and, but they over the time and building up their budget and building up revenue, they were allowed to do more, like spend more money on like higher market, like better, like not better marketing, but like more like beautiful branding, let's say. But I think you've got to be a bit scrappy at the beginning. And then you can kind of build to that point. But then look, that's kind of one of my beliefs, right? Maybe it isn't true, but that's how I look at it anyway.
How do you inform the content that you make into BIGGED, right? And obviously you're producing ads at scale and multiple iterations. Don't let me butcher what you guys do. Does learning a lot about the algos help understand and help inform the product from a marketing lens?
Oh my, I honestly think, like, in my opinion, I think marketing is going to be taught through like algorithms. I know it sounds nuts.
Tell me more.
But I feel like, because if you look at, I was at university, right? And I love my university. I think they did a really great job in what they taught me. But you can just tell that they're operating like social media as like 2015. Here's a picture of like a product, put it up, nothing, and then it gets zero. Like they don't they're not in the weeds enough. I think you've got to have someone in your team that's just like on the algorithm, max 1 hour, maybe a bit more, like minimum half an hour a day, just scrolling. Because culture moves so quickly on TikTok, as a great example.
Truly.
Like so unbelievably quickly. And if you're selling, I don't know, let's think of a product. Let's workshop a product. If you're selling trainers, right? Like you could be like, right, with your marketing team could be like, look, we've just come up with this really clever marketing campaign over this insight. But then 2 days later, that insight is irrelevant because the culture has completely moved on to a new different thing. So you have to adapt quicker. There needs to be quicker feedback loops. I think a lot of marketing teams, it's why I love startups, right? Because you don't have to sit around and get approval for 10 years and then be like, let's do this strategy. I think, and that's what I think the power of a startup, right? Is you're lean and you don't have to go through those hours or weeks or months of review. Have an idea, test it in the cheapest way possible, have some inspiration format that you've seen, spin it 3%, and it's truly new, right? That isn't my teaching. There's a great guy called Oren. Oren Meets the World. Have you heard of him?
Oh, of course I have. Creative director of the internet.
Like a lot of my learnings came from him because I think he's an operator. He like operates at a very high level. If I ever could have a conversation with him, I'd be like fangirling so hard. I think he's so cool because he just understands, you know, you can fight all this thing about being original, but there's a point where you need to actually get some winners. And realistically, if it's working, why not just spin it 3%? Like the verbal hook is going to work. Why not use it and then just make it original in your own way? I don't know. I'm quite anti the originality. I don't know. Maybe it's something I need to, but you know what I mean, right?
Anti the originality.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
Well, I am, but like,
it's a weird concept when you think about it, right? Because we're all trying to be original in the products we create and the marketing that we do. But actually, if you go against the grain and sort of just take the winners and apply your lens to it, that's sort of the world that we live in. How long do you think that's going to last?
Ooh.
Like you're in the weeds of it, but like this culture shift of, okay, just remix 3%. Obviously, it's existed for a long time. You take the F1 movie as an example. It's not much different from the Sylvester Stallone film that they did, you know, a couple decades ago, but it's got a very similar story arc to Top Gun. So it's remixed 3%. It's that Hollywood blockbuster, but it's got that same storyline with sort of the same characteristics. At what point do we get out of this culture shift of like switch 3% and move into something which is like, okay, push the boundaries again?
I think that changes when people stop being risk averse, right? And I think it's very easy for me to come on here and say, look, don't be original, just copy what works. And there'll be people arguing, kind of going, well, Luke, actually, no, listen, no, I don't believe in that. I think it's good to be original. And I'm like, yes, be original, right? But question what originality is. Is originality just bringing something new that no one's ever seen in your industry to something, right? Like when I mean about being original, it's like, I give an example, right? All the time I say to clients, right? It's a joke. Go look at the mattress industry. How are they selling mattresses? Learn that and then try and apply it to your industry, like in the formats they're doing, right? Because that is original. They have never seen how people will sell mattresses, right? Ever. And I think that's the thing about B2B, right? If you can understand how they're working in B2C, how people sell in B2C, take the learnings and then try and apply it to B2B. Have a funny 30-day series. You know, again, I've seen some great companies doing like incentivizing like their employees to make content. Do like an office skit, right? I mean, just have fun with it. And then people will see that you're having fun. And then you can have the really serious part in your kind of like back end sales process machine, whatever. But at the front, I don't know, at the top end, just make a bit of content that's really funny, make stuff that resonates, have emotion, have content that's actually serious and has value. And then, I don't know if I've answered your question.
How important is the individual brands within the employees of a company? So take, for instance, yourself, Zara, Aaron. How important are those characters online as well as just the entire company BIGGED?
People buy from people they like, full stop.
And so the idea is to get you three out there as much as possible so that you fill up the feed, or am I thinking about it differently?
I think the worst emotion in the world is indifference. If I look at someone and have no feeling towards, that is like the worst case scenario for me. I think I would rather, I mean, look, there's like rage baiting, right? That was a massive thing like a couple of months ago. Well, it's probably still happening now, actually, where people will say really controversial things, will get engagement. Yes, you know, it's probably not very nice what they're saying about the person, but they're earning 100K a year. Like, and I'm not saying money's everything, but like, if you understand what the algorithm rewards, and that's like likes, shares, comments, right? And then kind of like reverse engineer back from there, you can start working out, okay, well, if I'm doing a chicken video, spicy wings, would people send that in Slack to their friends and be like, this guy was trying to sell to me on, like, you know, look, I don't know if you'll have shared my chicken wing videos around, but like, if I got a video from someone telling me and doing something completely unhinged in the DMs, I'd be like, look, what is this kid doing? Even if they're laughing at me, I think that's a win because there's emotion, right? There's feeling. Maybe it isn't the emotion I'm looking for, but it's not indifference. It's like, oh, it's someone else, delete, right? That's the worst feeling to me.
How many
deletes them, like doesn't even care.
How many touch points have you figured out that it takes an individual to engage with a brand?
With BIGGED or just in general?
Just basically both. I think I'm asking BIGGED and in general.
Well, there's I think it's Daniel Priestley has a really good book about this, where I think it's 7 touch points. I think it's 7. I just sound like if you sound like a consumer, like a CPG stuff. I think in B2B it's quite interesting. There's something called account-based marketing, where you focus very particularly on a company. You work out who the key decision makers and you target. That's kind of something we're doing. And what I'm finding is if you, again, like you don't even have to be like the key decision makers at the beginning. Just start engaging with people like in the ecosystem, and don't set like there's a balance, right? Because again, you've got to. I think the biggest advice I give people is like take some of my things that you think would resonate for you and do it. Don't do everything I suggest because it's going to be nuanced to your industry.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're selling, I don't know, something that's not what I'm doing. Don't do some of these things. Like, but I think the wording is. It depends. I think it's a mixture, but like what I'm finding with BIGGED, like 2 touch points, and we're getting on a call with them, which is really good.
That's absolutely insane. 2 touch points.
It's insane. It's insane.
What the hell?
I had a previous company, and we did so many cold calls, and no meetings were booked. And I think I wish we'd done more public in sales, like sales in public. Sorry, because people they'll see you in the feed, and then when you message them, they're like, "Oh, it's the chicken guy. What does he want? You know?
What does he want?"
Some people. What does he want? I mean, sometimes I'll just challenge people to a 1v1. I don't know. Maybe they'll want to.
But I think that's nice because you sort of build aura around the company, right? And they can be brought into your storyline because, you know, social's collaborative today. And as LinkedIn moves more towards this like sort of social construct of how we interact with businesses, they can play within those fields in those areas. But then also they get the distribution on the platform and the hype that gets generated around something like that.
But like, look, I think like a 30-day series content is so clever because it's retention, right? Every day, you know that you're going to be, hopefully we'll see a kid eating spicy chicken wings in a lab coat wearing goggles, right? That's the game I'm playing. My bet is that within those 30 days, people will see that chicken video. They'll be like, what company is he working for that will allow him to do this? And then they'll click on my page, they'll see the demo video, and then on the back of that, they'll get in contact. That's my belief, right? Get the mass attention at the top, and then hopefully you've got the good product. Because don't get me wrong, I could do this, do all this like top of funnel stuff, and then no one's interested because the product's really bad. So actually have a good product, right? That is important. That is a fundamental. Have a good product that you know your customers will resonate with, but then think of funny ways to get them at the top of funnel, right? Because how many companies that you see, it's so heartbreaking to me, where they'll build this really great product. Well, they haven't actually talked to any of the customers about, but anyway, they've built a really beautiful looking product and they can't get attention and it dies. And to me, it's like, that is the worst feeling in the world. So I'd rather and so if you get to both working nicely, where you get good top of funnel and a good product, then it's a dangerous combo. Dangerous.
Who do you want to get in the DMs of that you aren't in already?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, it would be an interesting one because I think they're absolute operators. Nutrition geeks, I think, are fantastic. They're someone that I'm eyeing up next because their TikTok shop strategy is something to be. It's going to be a future case study, in my opinion, and because I think they're doing great stuff. I think Goalie were the first like starters in America of kind of how TikTok shop could grow. But I think Nutrition geeks have taken that and just like dialed in beautifully. So they're very much on my radar. Definitely nutrition geeks. I want them at some point. But look, the Huel story hasn't finished quite yet, and there could be some exciting developments. But I can't go into too much details yet.
To see it. How long do we have left on the 30-day challenge?
We've got 14 days.
14 days left. Remind me, does the hot sauce increase in intensity, or actually it's just the same hot sauce consistently?
It's increasing intensity, but I don't want to give away too much of like the finale, the final 3 videos. But let's just say I'm in conversations with some gospel choirs.
Interesting. Luke, this has been.
I don't want to give it away too
Luke,
much.
This is an absolute pleasure. Honestly, we've got to get you on for these marketing masterclasses. I'm looking forward to following the journey online. I think next time we've got to touch on some TikTok shop. I like how we can apply that to businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I was saying, if your audience, wants me to kind of go through like best in class content and why they resonate, I'm very happy to kind of give some insights, and also like workshopping how to set up an algorithm correctly. Like I love doing it, right? I have so many. I think I have 15 accounts right now. It's nuts.
15 accounts across 2 phones. We need to get Aaron to get you some more. This is
I know, mate, honestly, it's not in the budget. I've been saying I need more phones, but I think they think I'm a spy, because I think I'm gonna go up to like 6. They'll be terrified. I have so many mobiles.
Just walk into Plug, they just put them all on the table.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, look, mate, who knows? Maybe in 2 years' time, you'll see that I've got like 12 phones. It's like, God, he must have so many algorithms running.
And that's the status that we look up to. Luke, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for the time. Fine. I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Look, I loved it. Thank you for having me, by the way. I'm very grateful, and hopefully I've given some people some advice they can take.
Well, I'm sure we have. We're going to clip this up. It's going to be viral. Luke, speak soon. Ciao.